I'll tell you, when Bill died, I was privileged to, the New York Times asked me to write a little piece on him, and in doing that, I told this story about the first time I ever heard Bill Monroe, which Ralph Rinsler called me up one Sunday morning in 1961 in August and said, "Hey, I'm driving down to Rising Sun, Maryland to hear Bill Monroe. You want to come?" And naturally I said yes. And there's this little wooden stage and wooden benches, and in addition to Bill Monroe and his Bluegrass Boys, and he had a very atypical band, that was a kind of low point in his, I guess, his economic, rock and roll pretty much wiped out a lot of other kinds of music, including in terms of being able to get good gigs, bluegrass. And so Bill Monroe actually had a fiddle player that never played one solo, if you can believe that. Just stood there. But anyhow, and Ralph Rinsler had been trying to convince me that Bill Monroe was the guy, and I was new to bluegrass, and I was like digging Jimmy Martin and Flatt and Scruggs, and Bill Monroe's voice was a little intense for me, and he had a lot of double fiddles and not much banjo, and at least what I'd heard. Anyhow, when I heard that voice come out of a body, it just all made, it's like enlightenment or something. I just was transfixed, and the icing on the cake was that the opening band was a local band called Marvin Howell, Frankie Short, and the Franklin County Boys, and they had a young blonde-haired mandolin player named Frank Wakefield. And in 1961, Frank Wakefield was about as close to Bill Monroe stylistically as you could get. And from hearing both of them for the first time on that day, and I even heard them playing duets together backstage, I got the mistaken impression that all bluegrass mandolin players sounded like this, and which was a good mistaken impression, because it set me on my path. And so during Bill Monroe's show, there was somebody in the audience that kept yelling out, "Play Toy Heart, Toy Heart," which was one of Bill's songs. And Bill Monroe kept ignoring them. And finally, they said, "Well, if you can't play it, Jack Cook will." Now, Jack Cook was a local, at that time, from Baltimore, bluegrass. He had played guitar previously with Bill Monroe. For the last, I guess, 30 some odd years of his career, he played bass with Ralph Stanley. But back then, I guess he was in the audience, and he said, "If you can't play it, Jack Cook will." And Bill Monroe looked right at this person and said, "If I can't play it, nobody can."